Hey folks, it's me, M64bros, and today we're going to react to AAA games versus indie games. Why indie games will save industry. This was requested by Creakin McFland, the same guy that wanted me to react to the other indie games, and by the looks of it, he actually has a good point. A lot of indie games seem to be very popular. And I also discovered that this YouTuber right here only has 293 views, and he deserves more views. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to shout him out after this reaction. So, here goes nothing.
As long as it took me to download the thing from Xbox Live Arcade, we beat the game!
Redfall. Cyberpunk.
Do you guys not have phones? Yeah, you guys all have phones.
Oh, dang.
One of the key design philosophies behind Overwatch 2 is that poor people
Jedi
are actually
font.
people.
Overwatch. Is that? I don't know what game that is.
The game has been created without love.
Oh, you had to
With everything we've learned about what it takes
that.
to operate this game at the level that we deserve, it's clear that we can't deliver on that original vision for PvE that was shown in 2019.
Damn. Well, let me. Meanwhile, in indie games. Wow, hey, that's pretty good.
Ah! Oh my lord! Oh my
Wait a minute, I didn't know Elden Ring was a indie game. Oh yeah, Minecraft's an indie game too. Mind skills right there. Among Us. Wow. I never knew. Ooh. Wait a minute. Forgot that one game. Oh, I have that game, Rocket League. Yo, I have Rocket League. I'm trying to remember that one game. Elden Ring. Yeah, I never knew Elden Ring was a indie game, but yeah, indie games will save the industry. Hit me. Let's go.
I think we can all agree that AAA gaming is kind of in a rough spot right now. I've talked about it in length in
Good
my
point.
recent video about the potential upcoming video game industry crash, which is totally worth checking out if I say so myself. But forget about the crash, the big corporations, the suits and their shareholders, because I am convinced that the future of gaming actually lies somewhere else. And it's actually quite bright, despite shite. Welcome back, my dear friends and folks. My name is Carlos Art, and let's start
Pleasure
off
to
with
meet
what
you,
indie
Carlos.
games
My
exactly
name's
are.
M64.
I'm not saying you're stupid, you probably know what
Oh, that's
indie
totally
games are,
fine.
but for full context and for fluffing of the video, I'm gonna tell you anyways. Indie games are games produced by small studios and or developers that aren't tied to big publishers or corporations. Although there is a somewhat gray area in there, but we'll get to that a bit later on. Some indie games are made by small teams of developers or sometimes even just a single person. Some notable examples of indie games are Undertale, Cuphead, Among Us, Space Engineers, or the soon-to-be released Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, which I'm really looking forward to. The production of these games are sometimes paired with early access or Kickstarters in order to get the funding necessary to actually produce and publish these games. Or in the case of Cuphead, you just take a second mortgage on your house in order to fund your project. That's showing a lot of confidence in your project. And also some balls of fucking steel. Now, about that gray area I was talking about earlier, some games start off as indie games but end up being acquired by large corporations later on, sometimes for the better and sometimes for worse. PUBG, or should I say, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Other times a game gets so big that they don't really seem that indie anymore, since people tend to associate indie with small. You have an indie PP. For example, Minecraft, which isn't independent anymore, but by the time they were bought up by Microsoft, they were offered a staggering $2.5 billion. And it's like the most sold and played game ever in gaming history.
Wow.
So to sum up, indie just means that the game was initially developed without support from big corporations and the associated massive funding. Now, I'm gonna give you guys 3 reasons why I think that indie games are the future for the entire industry. And after that, I will provide 3 common pitfalls that indie games have to deal with. First, accessibility. The current state of the economy in the post-pandemic world isn't great. And although AAA games haven't jumped up in price all that much over the past years, the current cost of living crisis makes it so that $60 to $70 for a single game is actually quite a lot of money for most people, especially me.
Yeah, good point.
You're fucking poor!
But most indie games have a way lower price.
That game right there looks
for example,
really
Warhammer 40K
interesting.
Bolt Gun, which is set to cost about $20. Or games like Vampire Survivor or Among Us that cost like, what, $2, $3? But they still provide for hours and hours of entertainment. Hell, like the 3 most played games in my Steam library started off as indie games. And I still play them on the regular. Like, okay, except for PUBG, because it's kind of shit, but the other 2 I still play on the regular. So as long as you have a platform to play on, you don't need
Nice
to
computer
to have a good time. Making these games accessible for almost every gamer in the community. Combine that with the fact that developing games is a career path and that in itself is now more accessible than it has ever been. And you get a segment within the industry that is by the community and for the community, which in itself sparks my next point, which is innovation. The video game industry flourishes with innovation, and innovation nowadays within the AAA sphere is kinda lacking, to be honest. You see, investors don't want devs to stray from the beaten path. They already know what makes them the most money, and venturing into something new doesn't have these set guarantees, although those still aren't guarantees, but you catch my drift. But indie developers aren't tied to appeasing shareholders. They are the ones taking all the risk when it comes to their product. So if the dev is willing, they can try the most outlandish shit they can come up with. There's nobody there to say, we want you to stick to this because we know that will make us the most money. So indie devs can go wild and all out. You know, football, you know, racing, now Kiss, Rocket League, you know, Mega Man, you know, old school Disney. Cuphead. And all this innovation drives even more innovation. For example, Escape from Tarkov is an indie game, Mordhau is an indie game, smash them together and you get gems like Dark and Darker. And this kind of snowball effect gets me really excited because we don't know what's on the horizon next. We don't know what the future will bring, and keeps things fresh for players, especially for peanut brains like me that like to change up games every once in a while. I mean, people are gonna disagree with me on this, but for me it feels as if you played one Call of Duty post Call of 3, you kind of played all of them. Same goes for franchises like FIFA and Madden. Don't at me. And while all these franchises are commercial successes, indie games don't have these guarantees. You see, indie games have success by merit, which is my next point. What do I mean with that exactly? Well, for an indie game to be a commercial success, it needs to be good. Indie games don't have a preset pedigree to draw upon, so the pressure to deliver an actual good product is immensely, or they risk financial catastrophe. Cyberpunk is a perfect example. I myself pre-ordered that game and I still hate myself for it. But you see, I'm a huge Witcher fan, so I assumed it would be the shit. And CD Projekt Red having that resume just made me do the stupid. And that goes for a lot of people, which made Cyberpunk initially a financial success, although the game's shit. I mean, if Blizzard would announce StarCraft 3 tomorrow, like, the sales would go through the roof, even though we still haven't seen anything of it, regardless of the content, regardless of the quality. But indie devs don't have that luxury. They have to compete using the quality, originality, and accessibility of their games in order to make it a success. Further bolstering my previous points, if an indie game is shit, it just won't sell, it won't get any traction, and all the money and effort and time spent on it will just disappear. Now before we move on to the pitfalls of the indie sphere, here's a word from our sponsor.
Sponsor?
I don't have a sponsor, I'm a small channel, so if you like the content and would like to support the channel, consider subscribing. It helps out a lot.
I already will right after this reaction.
On to the pitfalls, because everyone steps in a pile of shit at least once in their lifetime. Scams.
Fight in the temple. Hiya! Hiya!
They don't even intend to sell as many copies as possible. They just hope that some poor saps buy the game, try it, and just will never refund it. But aside from that, there are even more elaborate scams that basically make it their life's work to lead on as many people as possible and just extract the maximum amount of money before even releasing anything. Leading people on with false promises and luring them in on their Kickstarter page, crowdfunding massive amounts of money and never delivering anything of substance. If you want to know which games you should avoid, I'd recommend checking out Kira TV, Callum Upton, or George Strive Hayes' channel, who've all made numerous videos about these kinds of scams.
I will.
It's super scummy, it takes advantage of the more gullible people in the community, and it's just hurting the industry and the indie sphere as a whole. Especially since people can get more wary to back some actual good work and viable concepts just because of like negative association due to past experiences or just negative publicity of this segment as a whole. All in all, I'm not saying you should never back a Kickstarter project or some other form of crowdfunded game. All I ask is that if you choose to do so, please do your research. Don't blindly buy in on some promises of a single Kickstarter page or some random dude just spewing his shit out in the ether without any verification whatsoever. Pitfall 2. Technical issues. This can vary wildly. For some games, it's just technical difficulties baked into the game that only occur on certain systems and have to be ironed out, which can be really difficult for some indie devs, especially if it's just one person working on the game. And this might kill its momentum in the process and making it so that it fades into obscurity. Other difficulties might be due to connection, like if a game blows up and the devs just can't keep up with the growth of their own product, effectively being forced to be bought up by bigger corporations or publishers in order to maintain servers or fix bugs or exploits or combat cheaters, for example. And although this isn't necessarily a death warrant for these games, it can be potentially devastating if they are bought up by the wrong company. Pitfall number 3. Early access limbo. This one kinda can have some overlaps with my previous points, but not necessarily. You see, some games release in early access but never see a full release. It doesn't automatically mean that they are a scam. In a lot of cases there is an actual concept and an actual game behind it, but this can happen due to several factors. I mean, I'm not an insider, so this is just mainly speculation, but maybe devs move on to work somewhere else. Perhaps the player counts are just dropping and it isn't even worth pursuing anymore, or it might be just a case of biting off more than you can chew. And the first thing that comes to mind is Star Citizen. I mean, this game is in development for what, like 10 years now? But there's still no 1.0 release in sight. But there is a real concept, and there is already some playable content out there. So yeah, to me that doesn't really seem like a scam, but rather a case of early access limbo where they just bit off more than they could chew. It just seems too ambitious and too big to handle. So no, the indie sphere isn't perfect by any means, but you need to dig through the dirt to find the gems. And I truly believe that these gems hold the future for the industry and the community. But you never know. I might be totally wrong. Maybe EA has a change of heart and produces the sickest shit ever next year. I don't have a crystal ball. Again, don't at me. That's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, if you like the content, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.
Peace out. And for that, you earned yourself a sub. Bam. I'm officially one of your biggest fans now. Other than that, hope you guys like this reaction. Subscribe to this man right here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So peace out.